Apple Podcast title, The Deep Dive. Bob Dylan's Love and Theft Masterclass in Americana and the Yakuza Connection. Apple Podcast description. In this deep dive, we explore Bob Dylan's 2001 iconic album, Love and Theft. Discover how Dylan took his never-ending tour band to the School of Bob, recording a spontaneous roots rock masterpiece in just 12 days. From bizarre poker commercials with magicians to surprising Yakuza plagiarism controversies, find out why music critics and legends like Johnny Cash called this Americana album Dylan's greatest work.
Imagine this for a second. You're a legendary musician.
Okay, I'm with you.
And you've just pulled off this massive career-defining comeback. I mean, the whole world is watching your every move to see what you do next.
The pressure's definitely on.
Exactly. So what is your play? Do you lock yourself in a high-tech studio for months, just agonizing over every single note?
That's what most people would do.
Right. But no. Instead, you drag your touring band into a room in New York City and casually record an absolute masterpiece in just 12 days.
It's wild.
Oh, and along the way, you film a bizarre television commercial featuring a high-stakes poker game with a magician. You hire an engineer who is actually famous for his work with the hip-hop group Public Enemy.
Yeah, that part always gets people.
And you borrow lyrics straight from a Japanese Yakuza boss. So welcome to this deep dive into Bob Dylan's 31st studio album, Love and Theft, which was released on September 11th, 2001.
A really heavy day in history, obviously.
Very heavy day. But if you are looking to understand how a master synthesizes roots, rock, and Americana into something entirely his own, you are in the right place today. Our mission is to unpack exactly how this album serves as a masterclass in American musical history, and why critics and legends alike point to it as the project that truly cemented Dylan's immortality.
It really is an incredible story. And framing it as a masterclass as well, it's the perfect way to look at it, because Love and Theft isn't just a regular collection of songs.
What is it then?
It's a historical tapestry. It is an album where the ghosts of music past are practically sitting right there in the studio with the band. It's this deeply textured exploration of American sound.
And we are going to get into all of that.
Right. To really appreciate what Dylan accomplished here, we have to look at how he pulled all these seemingly disconnected threads together, from obscure literature to traditional folk styles, and somehow wove them into a cohesive, critically acclaimed triumph.
To get how wild this whole thing is, we have to set the stage a bit. This album comes hot on the heels of his 1997 artistic comeback, Time Out of Mind.
A huge album for him.
Massive.
Mm-hmm.
But for Love and Theft, Dylan decides to produce it himself under the pseudonym Jack Frost.
Which is such a Dylan move.
It totally is. And the band he uses. This is the very first time he records a studio album with his never-ending tour road band.
Yeah, these are the guys he's been playing with night after night on the road.
Right, so they book Clinton Recording Studio in Midtown Manhattan. This is in May 2001. And they record exactly 12 songs in exactly 12 days.
One song a day.
One song a day. For an artist of his stature, at that point in his career, is that kind of speed normal?
No, it's almost unheard of. I mean, what's fascinating here is the absolute spontaneity of those 12 days. Dylan didn't walk in with rigid sheet music and strict demands for the band.
He didn't.
Not at all. He wanted an environment where the music could mutate on the spot until it felt exactly right.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I was looking through the liner notes, and I noticed something that completely threw me off. The engineer for this album is Chris Shaw.
Yep.
Now, why does that name ring a bell?
Because Chris Shaw got his start working on early Public Enemy records.
That is just what... So you have Bob Dylan recording what is essentially an encyclopedia of ancient American roots music, and he hires a hip-hop engineer. That feels like a massive contradiction.
It sounds like one until you realize what Dylan is actually doing here.
Which is?
Well, hip-hop is fundamentally built on sampling, right?
Yeah.
Taking pieces of old records, recontextualizing them, and layering them to build something entirely new.
Right.
Yeah, it is no coincidence he hired an engineer who understood that exact process. Dylan was doing the same thing, just organically, with a live band and old literature.
That makes so much sense.
Shaw actually shared this amazing anecdote about how shocking the sessions were. He said they'd be working on a song, and in a split second, Dylan would just abandon the arrangement.
Just throw it out.
Completely. He'd stop the room and say, "What's the tempo? Let's do it in F," and drop the tempo down and do it like a Western swing tune. And I want the drummer to play brushes, not drums.
Just like that.
Just like that. The entire song would completely mutate in real time. Nothing was set in stone until Dylan found the exact key, tempo and style that fit the lyric and his vocal delivery.
But how does a band actually do that? I mean, if they don't have sheets of music ready to go, how do five guys just pivot on a dime and seamlessly switch to a Western swing tune?
That kind of telepathy doesn't happen by accident. It happened because of what the band's drummer, David Kemper, called the School of Bob.
The School of Bob.
Yeah, and the brilliant part is Kemper admitted the band didn't even realize they were enrolled in this school at first.
How do you not know you're in school?
Well, while they were traveling on the Neverending Tour, Dylan was constantly playing incredibly obscure early Americana tracks for them on the bus. Stuff from the turn of the century in the 1920s.
Oh, so he's just playing DJ on the tour bus.
Exactly. He has this unparalleled encyclopedic knowledge of American music.
It's like a parent hiding vegetables in the mac and cheese. They thought they were just hanging out listening to old records on the highway. But Dylan was actually formatting their hard drives for the recording session.
That is the perfect analogy. He wasn't teaching them to play those literal songs note for note. He was teaching them the styles. He was getting the specific vocabulary of early American music into their bones.
So it's basically a crash course.
It was.
Yep.
So when they finally walked into Clinton recording for Love and Theft, the band realized they were already fluent in the exact musical language Dylan wanted to use.
They knew the history.
They knew the historical styles inside and out. That shared vocabulary is the only reason they were able to effortlessly cut a master-quality song every single day.
Which brings us to the title itself, Love and Theft. It's such a striking phrase. And it actually comes from a 1993 book by historian Eric Lott called Love and Theft, Blackface Minstrelsy and the American Working Class.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the title is basically a thesis statement for the entire album. And really, for Dylan's creative process as a whole.
How so?
Well, Dylan is taking us on a sprawling tour of American music and acknowledging that American music itself is built on a complex history of borrowing, stealing, and loving the traditions of the past. The album is this landscape populated by rogues, outcasts, gamblers, and desperados.
Before we dive into the specific tracks, the sources mention that the album covers styles like jump blues, rockabilly, and Tin Pan Alley. For someone who maybe mostly listens to modern radio, what are we actually hearing when those terms get thrown around?
Good question. So Tin Pan Alley refers to the highly polished, theatrical pop songwriting style that came out of New York in the early 1900s. Think of classic, sophisticated parlor ballads.
Okay, got it.
Then jump blues is that up-tempo, horn-driven, heavily rhythmic blues that was hugely popular just before rock and roll took over.
Like really danceable stuff.
Exactly. Add in some rockabilly, which is early, raw rock mixed with country, and you get a sense of the sonic gumbo Dylan is cooking here. The album heavily evokes the subversive, dark humor of Harry Everett Smith's anthology of American folk music.
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
What is the Harry Smith anthology exactly? Why is that significant here?
The Anthology of American Folk Music was a compilation released in 1952. It was made entirely of obscure, weird, and often deeply dark folk, blues, and country records from the 1920s and 30s.
Okay.
It basically became the sacred text for the entire 1960s folk revival. It was Dylan's primary textbook when he first came to New York. So with Love and Theft, he's channeling that same fatalistic, strange, old-world energy.
That perfectly aligns with how Dylan himself described the album. He did an interview with Rolling Stone where he summed up the themes as dealing with, quote, business, politics, and war, and maybe love interest on the side.
That is such a Dylan quote.
It really is. Let's walk through how that actually sounds track by track. The opening track is Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Right, and critics describe that track as rolling in like a storm. It paints this incredibly vivid picture of a Mardi Gras parade in New Orleans, complete with masked, intoxicated vagabonds.
It's very cinematic.
Highly cinematic. It's driven by this relentless, galloping drum beat, and in classic dark folk tradition, it ends in death.
Of course it does.
It serves as a warning label for the album, basically saying, here are the characters we're about to meet, proceed at your own risk.
Then you have a track like Mississippi. I read this song had a really strange journey before it ended up on this record.
It did. It's a gorgeous, sprawling song, but Dylan originally felt he couldn't get it right during the Time Out of Mind sessions back in 1997.
So he just scrapped it.
Well, he actually offered it to Sheryl Crow.
Really?
Yeah, she recorded an up-tempo version of it for her 1998 album, The Globe Sessions.
I had no idea.
But Dylan clearly felt a lingering attachment to the song, so he reclaimed it, reworked it with his touring band for Love and Theft, and turned it into an absolute classic.
And it had a pretty long life after that too, right?
It became so universally beloved that the Dixie Chicks later made it a massive staple of their live tours.
The track that really stands out for its sheer weight, though, is High Water for Charlie Patton.
That track is phenomenal. It's a sweeping, apocalyptic portrait of the racial history and the deep-seated dread of the American South.
It feels heavy just listening to it.
It is. Dylan dedicates it to Charlie Patton, who was one of the foundational pioneers of Delta blues. Patton becomes a symbol in the song for the region's incredible cultural richness, but also its ingrained social cruelties.
The imagery is so intense. You have these rumbling drums, moaning backing vocals, and Dylan just rasping that haunting line, high water everywhere, which traces back to the devastating Mississippi floods of 1927.
Right.
It feels like you are listening to things go from bad to worse in real time.
But he doesn't leave you completely in the dark. The album is tempered with incredible musicality and surprising tenderness.
Like where?
Take a track like Po' Boy. This one completely shifts gears. It features these lounge jazz chord patterns that sound like they were plucked straight out of a speakeasy in 1920.
It has a very different rhythm to it, right? It feels almost hesitant.
Yes, the critic Tim Riley pointed out something brilliant about it. He noted how Dylan masterfully leaves you dangling at the end of each bridge.
What do you mean?
Well, he sings this dense trail of words, squeezing them into the melody, and then just stops. He lets the band punctuate the silence.
Oh, I see.
It gives the song this reluctant, soft shoe charm that completely contrasts with the dread of high water.
And then we reach the finale, Sugar Baby. It's a lengthy, dirge-like ballad. It's absolute drenched in studio echo and built on this deceptively simple riff that eventually turns completely foreboding.
It really closes the door on the album.
It's packed with apocalyptic imagery and leaves you with this heavy, resonant feeling as the record finally stops.
It's a monumental piece of work, but what I find almost as fascinating as the music is how Dylan chose to present it to the world.
Here's where it gets really interesting. You'd think an album this heavily steeped in obscure Americana, social commentary, and apocalyptic blues would have a super serious marketing campaign.
You would assume so.
But on August 28, 2001, a 30-second commercial hits the internet and then network TV featuring the song Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
And the visual is amazing.
It is Bob Dylan sitting at a tense high-stakes poker game with the renowned magician Ricky Jay, the actress Francine York, and the TV writer Eddie Gorodetsky. It is completely out of left field.
And that aesthetic was entirely Dylan's idea. He specifically told the director, Kinka Usher, that he didn't want it to look like a standard corporate music ad.
He wanted to film.
Exactly. He requested that it be shot like a little film. And if you think about it, it perfectly matches the rogue gambler energy of the album's lyrics. He's leaning fully into that 1920s outlaw persona.
The whole visual era was so cohesive. The album cover itself is this striking black and white photograph taken by Kevin Mazur right there in the recording studio.
With the mustache.
Yes. Dylan is sporting this brand new pencil-thin mustache, looking exactly like one of those riverboat gamblers he's singing about. There's also a great back cover portrait by David Garr, and inside, photos of the whole never-ending tour band, including organist Augie Myers, who joined them for the sessions.
Beyond the visual flair, Dylan's behavior during the rollout was highly unusual. Historically, he hasn't exactly been the most eager participant in press junkets.
That's putting it mildly.
True. He usually treats the media with a healthy dose of suspicion or sometimes outright hostility. But for Love and Theft, he was surprisingly open.
He actually did press.
He did a lot of it. He participated at a massive press conference at the Hotel de la Ville in Rome, taking questions from reporters all over Europe. He also granted in-depth interviews to major publications like USA Today, the Los Angeles Times, and sat down with McCall Gilmore for Rolling Stone.
Wow.
He clearly knew he had created something special and was willing to talk about it.
And the critical reception backed him up entirely. Love and Theft peaked at number 5 on the U.S. Billboard 200, and it hit number 1 in Norway and Sweden.
Incredible numbers for a Roots album.
It went on to win the Grammy Award for Best Contemporary Folk Album.
Yeah.
Think about the gravity of that. A loud, sprawling Roots rock album winning contemporary folk. Even Johnny Cash, the Man in Black himself, did an interview with the New York Times where he flat out named Love and Theft as Bob Dylan's best album.
When Johnny Cash says it's your best work, you've achieved something monumental. The critical consensus was perhaps best summarized by the legendary music critic Robert Christgau.
What did he say?
In his review, he wrote a line that has really stuck to the legacy of this record. He said, "If Time Out of Mind was his death album, this is his immortality album."
His Immortality album, that gives me chills.
It topped the Paz and Jot poll too, which, for music nerds, is essentially the holy grail of critical consensus in a given year.
Okay, but we have to talk about the elephant in the room.
Ah, yeah.
You can't have a masterpiece without some controversy. The title is Love and Theft. And shortly after the album came out, people realized the theft part might have been a bit more literal than they thought.
This raises an important question about how we define originality, because very astute listeners noticed striking similarities between the lyrics in Dylan's song Floater and a book by the Japanese writer Junichi Saga.
The book is called Confessions of a Yakuza.
Right, which had been translated into English by John Bester.
The comparisons are not just vague inspirations. They are completely wild when you put them side by side. In Floater, Dylan sings, "I'm not quite as cool or forgiving as I sound."
And in the book, the line is, "I'm not as cool or forgiving as I might have sounded."
Later in the song, Dylan sings, "My old man, he's like some feudal lord."
In the very first chapter of the book, it says, "My old man would sit there like a feudal lord."
Wait, hold on. He listed an author's exact words. In any other context or in any other era, that is a massive copyright lawsuit. How did you get away with that?
In the modern music industry, you're right, that usually ends in massive lawsuits, public apologies, and a huge scandal. But the twist here is amazing.
What happened?
When reporters reached out to author Junichi Saga to inform him that the great Bob Dylan had apparently plagiarized his work, Saga wasn't angry at all.
Really? He wasn't preparing a legal team?
Not even close. In fact, he was deeply honored.
You're kidding.
No, he didn't feel abused by it. He felt it was a massive privilege that his words had made their way into a Bob Dylan song. He saw it as a compliment.
But even with the author's blessing, how did the critics handle it? You think the media would tear him apart for copying someone else's homework?
This is where that connection to the hip-hop engineer Chris Shaw really crystallizes. Remember Robert Christgau, who called it his immortality album?
Yeah.
His defense of the Yakuza controversy perfectly captures the thesis of the album. He essentially said, all pop music is love and theft, and in 40 years of records whose sources have inspired volumes of scholastic exegesis, Dylan has never embraced that truth so warmly.
So he's saying the title is the defense.
He's basically saying the album is literally called Love and Theft. He's telling you right on the cover exactly what he's doing.
So it's not plagiarism, it's sampling.
Exactly. The entire album is an exercise in taking existing cultural artifacts, whether it's an obscure 1920s jazz progression, a Charlie Patton blues motif, or a translated line from a biography of a Japanese Yakuza boss, and recontextualizing them.
He makes them his own.
Right. By weaving them into his own distinct narrative voice, he breathes new life into them. This is the deepest, oldest folk tradition. Folk music has always been about passing songs down, changing a lyric here, adapting a melody there to fit the times.
Dylan just expanded the scope of what he was willing to steal from.
He treated world literature and American history as his personal sample library.
So what does this all mean? When we look at this 12-day recording sprint, the stealth education to the School of Bob, the poker commercial, the flawless Americana, and the Yakuza lyrics, we see an artist who is totally unapologetic about his creative process.
Absolutely unapologetic.
Love and Theft is the literal embodiment of its title. Dylan took pieces of early Americana, obscure literature, and traditional styles, and he filtered every single one of them through his own undeniable genius.
And the result is a modern masterpiece that feels incredibly old and entirely new at the exact same time.
It really emphasizes a profound lesson about what mastery actually looks like. True mastery in any field often isn't about creating something from absolute zero in a vacuum.
No, it's about being a phenomenal student of history. Just like the touring band had to absorb the lessons of the School of Bob, Dylan himself is a lifelong student of the American musical tradition. Mastery is the ability to synthesize diverse, pre-existing pieces into something that is distinctly and unmistakably your own.
You don't have to invent the wheel, but you can definitely build a faster, cooler car with it.
Well said.
Which leaves us with a fascinating thought for you to take away today. If a cultural icon like Bob Dylan, one of the greatest songwriters in human history, can openly treat history, obscure literature, and the musical past as one giant sandbox to borrow from, literally engaging in love and theft.
It makes you wonder.
It does. How might you look at your own sources of inspiration differently? Is true originality really about inventing from scratch? Or is it just knowing exactly what to steal and loving it enough to make it new? Keep that in mind next time you sit down to create. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the sources behind love and theft. We'll catch you next time.